All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another episode of the GhostComms podcast. Again, coming back after a little hiatus. Life caught up to us in a pretty heavy way. A lot has
It did
happened.
indeed.
We'll try and catch up on all of that in throughout the length of this episode. But yeah, we're gonna try something new. We're gonna try go into weekly, regardless of whether we could find guests or not, because that was the reason for the hiatus. Was it just fell through with 3 or 4 recordings that we had scheduled, and that happens. But we just couldn't find anyone to record with that we felt was of the right caliber and the right stories that we wanted to tell. So yeah, so now we're just gonna kind of talk every week about whether we have a guest or not, address different things in the scene. So we're just coming off of Major 1 FNCS of the year.
Yep.
Big grands. A lot of people said it was a really exciting grands. I would agree. I did a watch
It was.
party for both days. Day 1 was a little bit slow on NA. But day 2 was really, really fun to watch. Close calls on both. I mean, EU came down to 1 point, which is insane. Poor Thomas HD.
Poor
Getting
Thomas.
another second is crazy.
He's had so many top threes now. Like I feel so bad
If
for
anyone
him.
deserves a win at this point, an FNCS win, it's Thomas HD.
I wouldn't be. It would be the greatest thing in the world if this guy ends up winning globals.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
It would be the greatest thing in the world if this guy ends up getting the winning globals.
I would hope
which
so.
I wouldn't be surprised because the
Yeah.
dude's amazing at the game.
He's just so consistent. Yeah.
He's so consistent. It's just he
I
gets
think it
out.
was like
He just 1 points and all this, bro.
I think it was like in the last 15 FNCSs or something like that, he's gotten like his lowest placement was like a 5th or something like that. I may
I think
be
it was
wrong
like
on
a
those
7.
numbers.
I think it was a 7.
Yeah,
I think it
that's
was
just
like I
that's
think he
ridiculous.
has the most single player top threes, if I'm not wrong. I think that's
Yeah.
what I heard.
That's not
But
surprising.
no, this EU Grand Finals was definitely a crazy step. I mean, we saw first day was interesting. We saw Vidil and Reason take off on first day, just pretty much just be very consistent, dominate. Like I'm looking at matches here right now. Third with 7 elims, seventh with 8 elims, and everything else was just a very somewhat decent late game. Like they were just very
Yeah.
consistent in the sense that they got to end game every game. They played it
Yeah.
out. They knew exactly what they were doing. Their rotates were perfect. Their surge game was insane. If anybody saw that on stream,
Yep.
I mean, we could dive on exactly what their plan was or what we saw, but that's gonna take up hours on end. But
Yeah.
like, I mean, Vidil, Reason, and Vino Tayson did great first day. Second day, didn't go exactly their way. I think the most interesting part of day 2 was this whole 1.5 multiplier. If
Yeah.
anything,
Yeah, that was huge. It made all the difference. I think because and we've talked about this here before. I think when we had Cooper on, we really touched on this on day 1 versus day 2 of Grands. And it's just a completely different game. It's a completely different tournament.
I feel like you have a lot more to prove in day 2 than you do in day
Yeah,
1.
for sure.
Even though there's a lot to prove in those 2 days as a grand finalist.
Yeah.
I think day 2 you have a lot more to prove, especially if you're a team that's lower on the leaderboard and you were expected to be higher, right?
Yeah.
So
At day 1 too is like it. I feel like going into a grands, it's like day 1 is to build comfort for one, like just get the nerves out a little bit, play some lobbies, get used to it, get comfortable. But it's also to build a cushion, so because that's gonna like if you can be in the top half of day 1, then if you have a solid day 2, which you should after day 1, you should go in VOD and you should all that stuff. Like it is who's gonna make the most adaptations in between. It's that night of day 1 after the first 6 games are over and everyone goes in VODs and all that stuff. Like all the adjustments get made. Whoever can make the best adjustments, who was already in the top half usually. I mean, we had like Death had the best day 2 up until like the last 3 games, and then everything like fell to shit pretty quickly. But it just goes to show. I mean, you can have a really good day 1. I mean, the day 1 winners are almost never the winners. Are almost never the day 2 winners, and are almost never
the cumulative.
And they like they're usually top 15, maybe like top 20, 25 ish. By the end,
right?
Like
Because it's not like they're realize it's not like they're like, oh, we're up 90 points, oh, we're gonna relax now. It's not
Right,
that.
right.
It's just another team. There's still
Yeah,
four. There's still in a top 10 situation. If you're number one,
yeah.
there's still 9 other teams below you that probably are willing to contend just as well. Just of course, you did better that day. It's a
Mhm.
second day now. It's a whole different circumstance. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like one the craziest changes that can happen again, like people just landing on another guy.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
rule saying that you can't. It's
Yeah.
just like you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
But it's like a community. It's one of those unwritten rules, but like people
Yeah.
do it because
Well,
they're willing to put that. Like I mean, if we're talking about like landing on people, I'm not saying it's a dirty play, but if we're talking about back in I think it was the first globals back in end of chapter 3 when Queasy and Vino knew that if
yep.
they didn't kill
That
who
was a
was the setting
situation where it
I'm not
made
wrong.
sense though. Yeah,
It made
where they
sense,
landed
right?
on
Exactly, which
Kamiseti,
is
yeah, and it
fair. Like
yeah.
I don't think Setting and Kami would have been mad had they lost. Like
No.
that's a
Yeah.
valid thing. But again, there's teams that dead
Yeah.
last and they just like grief the other team. Like
Yeah.
griefing is a very common thing
Yeah.
in this esport specifically,
Especially when you
where
have people like Clicks who are, I mean, he was streaming,
Mhm.
and that was another thing that I wanted to talk about
Shout
this
out to him.
grand specifically. Like the viewership was insane.
Was
I mean,
insane.
Clicks peaked, I think, at like 115K, 120K,
Yep,
which is like
115K in the
on a
last.
5 minute delay. Like
I think
no,
that
there's
was
no
day two. Yeah.
yeah, like that's insanity. I mean, the numbers that we were seeing out of EU, like Mongrel and Savage each had 70, 80K plus,
Mhm.
like their whole stream, the broadcast, like comp was really watched this season, which is
Yeah.
I feel like surprising considering I don't feel like the community feedback has matched that throughout the
I
length of
think
this season, but
I
yet
think
it
yeah.
just was like this Grands was super watched. I don't know
I think
exactly where
one of
that's
the
coming
things
from.
this season as well was that we saw a lot of the grands that we've seen in the last few years have. I'm not gonna take it away from making. If you made a grand finals, great on you. Like you're clearly proven to be a grand finalist. Like we saw last season, we saw some underrated names make grand finals, such as someone I used to talk to, Virgo. He made grand finals
My
or
young
whatever
goat.
his season was. My
Yeah.
young goat. Shout out to Virgo.
Yeah, we love Virgo.
Insane, like 14-year-old kid that just
Yeah.
knows how to play this game properly,
Yeah.
and has grown so much since I last talked to him. But we see people like Virgo who no one expects to make a grand finals. All of a sudden, he
Yeah.
makes it, and everybody in a grand final setting, viewership wise, expects the biggest names like, of course, Acorn, Cold, Peter Bot,
Yeah.
Clicks, Edible.
Yeah.
They expect these names to be in there, and of course, the names like Aegis, Kanata, Aviv, Buga. They expect
Yeah.
those names, and I think this grand finals finally had a lot of those names make this grand finals. Like you saw Blake and
Yeah.
Macwood make it. Like
Yeah.
you saw a lot of people and of course Jiven,
Yeah.
like crazy.
What a miracle!
What
That's
a
just
miracle
insane to
call.
me. I mean, I think he was the oldest Grands competitor. I think. I mean, he's 24,
That makes
25.
sense. That makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
that
I mean, that's
or yeah, I think that's
because I
yeah,
don't
that makes sense.
because my first thought was like Punisher's never made one. I don't think.
No,
Or
did he
maybe
make
when he
West
was
Grand Final?
younger. I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah,
But
I mean it was probably a while ago,
that
but
was cool.
I think it was chapter 2.
No, but
But
yeah.
yeah, go
Anyway,
ahead.
continue.
No, I was just gonna say, like this grand finals, I feel like we saw a lot of names that people wanted to see, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like not
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it was like, oh, unexpected. It was this
Yeah.
season was specifically like wanted names. Like you saw
Mm,
Blake and Macwood, and we know Blake's a great comp player. It's just we also know that he has certain inconsistencies in his game when he plays comp,
yeah.
when he goes for Clash Cups and stuff. We
For
know
sure.
like certain names. Like we didn't expect Jiven to be in here. Everybody
Yeah.
loves Jiven. Everybody
But and
once they heard it. And
I think the return of people like Mongrel, like
Mongrel,
Mongrel
yeah,
making a Grands, I think just like raise the hype a lot.
for sure.
You have Clicks as a real contender, and a
Yeah.
quick shout out. I mean, to not dwell on Grands, I don't want to dwell on Grands for the entirety of this episode. But dude, Clicks' performance, I was
Insane.
unbelievably impressed, and
It's crazy how much he still cares for this game. I can't lie.
yeah,
Like
no, I
it is
mean,
crazy how much he's gotten better
I've
from
always
what
said that
he was.
he should just drop comp and prioritize content
Mhm.
and I mean
I mean,
he
he's doing both. He's
yeah no he is no and to his credit I mean it could well okay I guess I get to this right competing just for the sake of competing and being a name up there, almost to boost your content, is one thing. But I feel like if you're truly competing, you're aiming for the top, and that like you can't split that, right?
Right.
Content grind and truly trying to become the top competitor that you can. Like if Clicks was
It's
taking competitive as serious as he could be, he would be scrimming every day. He like all the stream hours and the content hours would be going to competitive. So obviously he's not 100% on that, and which I think is smart. I think it's smart that he's building his brand and his companies and his career for longevity's sake. What I'm getting at though is even despite that, he got fourth. He top fived in this Grands, while
I
being
think
one of the biggest content creators in the world. Like,
yeah.
credit to him.
I
I
think
like,
he's I think he's met his. I think he knows where, like, you know how like we're saying that like it's hard because it's two different time managements of wanting to be this content person and wanting to be this comp person. It's two very different time
yeah,
managements. Like as a comp
yeah,
player, you're grinding the game.
yeah,
As a content player, you're grinding ideas
yeah,
to record and
yeah,
ideas to stream and all this stuff, like collabs and stuff. Like you are planning day in and out. Nashad said it well. Like you wake up, you go start a stream, you edit a video, you get off stream, you edit another video, you go to
yeah,
sleep, you rinse and repeat. Like that's like a content type of person. Like a comp
yeah,
person is entirely different. They get on, they do their thing, they get on the game, they scrim, they practice, they VOD review, they specifically do that. And I think Clicks has met his midpoint where it's like he's now streaming events after years of not streaming grand finals,
yeah,
and he's realized that like yes, there could be the toll, but having this delay, having the
yeah,
feature of delaying streams and whatnot, or delaying
yeah,
stream time and whatnot, actually worked to his advantage. And nothing bad happened this grand finals, thank God.
yeah.
But
No, I mean
it can
he
happen. But you know,
no, I was truly impressed with him as a player. I mean, as a creator, he's
100%,
always pushed to new heights.
100%.
Undeniable his results, obviously, but in competitive, I've always said, yeah, I mean, I would rather him drop it because he's not getting anything out of it. I didn't think, and I think this grants he kind of changed that narrative, at least for me as a spectator, to pull out a top five. I mean, you know, for people to go, oh, he's a washed content creator, and then to pull out a top five in grand finals on the second hardest region in the world, that's no
It
small feat.
yeah,
So all
it's
respect
crazy
to
to
him.
see that. It's crazy to see that there was actually a realistic possibility, like a very very realistic possibility that he would have gotten to top three
Yeah,
had they
yeah,
not had a shittier end game the
yeah,
game before
yeah,
their last
yeah,
game,
yeah,
or a few more places in that final game. Like
yeah,
had that not had that happened, this top three would have been blown out of the open. Like it would have
yeah,
looked very very doable, and it still did. Going
yeah,
into that final game, it looked very doable, and I just think regardless of that top three or not, I think a
yeah.
lot of this calm has now given him the respect of he's a very good
Oh
content
yeah,
creator,
he
and now
silenced.
he's clearly proving that he cares enough about comp to
Yeah,
play and you know do all this.
he silenced his biggest criticisms, even especially from people like me. I mean, you know, and
100%.
he's been doing that as a creator and as a player now. Like
Yep.
my biggest criticism of him as a as a creator for a long time was that I don't think he took his influence seriously. And now you see, you know, the videos that he's been doing recently. He did the I don't know if it was through Make a Wish, but it was a kid with cancer. You know, the video that he did in Fenway Park where he played on like the biggest screen in
Oh,
the world, like
yeah, yeah,
with a, you know, and that was just like using his platform for good, for awareness, for charity, like all of that. He's begun these things that kind of silenced that criticism of mine that he wasn't taking his platform seriously, and I think he is now. And then now to prove himself as a player as well. I've really enjoyed seeing him mature and grow um, into what I think is more the model of what a creator should be nowadays, because
Yep.
they have so much power and they have so much influence. And I mean, he's making ungodly amounts of money. And I feel like the least that you can do is, you know, contribute to society and have the awareness that you are a role model to that next generation, and use that for good. The last two things I want to talk about in regards to this grants was the Eomzo thing, the Rise
I
and
was
Eomzo
just going
thing,
to bring that up.
and then I think where orgs rank in regards to in light of these grants results. But I I'd be interested to hear your take, because so for those of you who don't know that are listening, Rise and Eomzo were first going into the last two
By
games,
a
three
decent,
games,
I think.
or it was
Okay.
first.
All I know was that day one they absolutely did dominate.
Yeah,
Like
and
they
they were
were.
at some point through the first couple or 3 or 4 games of day two, they were in first by a considerable margin. It
Mhm.
must have been no, it must have been like 2 games in of the 6 or
I'm looking
3 games
at it right
maybe. Um, but
now. It was after two. It was after
yeah,
two.
so after 2, they were leading by a lot, like 100 or more
Yeah,
points
third with
over
fifth
second.
and 15th with third or
Yeah,
three. So
so
that's
that
fair.
then they then all of a sudden, right? No problems for the rest of this grand finals for them specifically. Their internet starts spiking, and they don't queue into not 1 but 2 games in a
Final
row.
two.
And like
Oh no, it was. Oh,
that,
I see what happened. It
it
wasn't two back to back. It was one at some point and one at another point.
really okay. Well, then it must have been 1, and
Yeah.
then they played 1, and then they got kicked again or something.
So
But even the games
yeah.
they got in after these internet issues started happening, they had packet loss, and you could see the lag from other
Mm,
people's perspective.
yeah.
But what I'm getting at is I don't, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I don't think that it was coincidental at all that first place
No,
all of a
100%
sudden
not.
starts getting internet issues. So then the theories have now spread, obviously, that that Eomzo got DDosed, which is getting kicked off. Somebody accesses your IP address or whatever. I'm not a computer technician. I don't know exactly how it works, but there's some way
It's
that they
like
can
booting someone off their
boot you
server.
off of your own connection. Yeah, disconnect you from your
Yeah.
ISP or whatever it is. Um, to where they could not queue into the game. And this cost them desperately. I don't even remember what place they ended up in, but I know they
They
dropped.
dropped from first after 8 games to eighth after 12. Or
Yeah.
10, because they only played 10.
So I mean, you
So
think of the prize pool difference. You think of the like I mean, getting an FNCS title strips away. So that's a globals qualification, an FNCS title, and your prize pool all gone because somebody my leading theory is that it was somebody who was in the top pack, right? Who knows that they couldn't catch Eomzo Rise, but were staying with the rest of the pack, second through fifth, let's say, or somewhere in there. That paid someone or somehow got Eomzo and Rise DDosed so that they could catch up. And that's exactly what you saw, right? We saw a pack, Eomzo Rise dropped, and then the whole pack rose above them.
mm,
But I don't put it past pros at all. We've had instances of pros paying people that are like going to place in the bottom 10 of a grand, like go land on other people, surprise con. Like we've
and
had
that's yeah.
collusion, we've had teaming, we've had surge trading, we've had people paying people to do stuff. Like I don't put it past 90%, 90+% of the FNCS grand finalist pros to do something like that just for just to get the prize or to get a higher placement or whatever it is, which is just like you talk about why Fortnite is not taken seriously as an esport. That's it right there,
This
right?
is
Like
the
that.
well, that's also the reason that this esports specifically not being at lands for these big of tournaments is also a problem. Like, of course, globals, we all are hyped for globals, and it's at the end of every year or whatever it is, and we all want it to
Yeah.
happen, and we cannot wait for it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, not having your championship series that runs every season and is
Yeah.
notable to run at every season after
Yeah.
2 months of the season, when you don't host it at a LAN, you're giving the opportunity to
Yeah.
anybody to do anything.
There's
Like the
so much
same
room for
way,
foul
think about
play.
it this way.
Yeah.
In a cash cup, when people complain about cheaters, it never goes viral. Like it never goes like yes,
Mhm.
it will be there circulating for the day, maybe the next morning, but it never
Yeah.
goes to like the next day over, and it never people don't hold it for weeks on end.
Yeah.
When you had this not been a Yamzo Rise and this been a bigger name, such as Clicks or Booga in
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
had this not saying a Yamzo isn't a huge name because he clearly is, and Rise, of course, as well, because they've been
Yeah.
dominating for
But they're
seasons
not
now.
they're not big personalities. They're big names. They're
Yeah,
not big
exactly.
personalities. And like, but I
When
mean, did you see the Booga clip that came out when he was arguing with Faxity?
when he was yeah
Or
about
arguing
Yamzo.
with BloodX on Faxity stream? But
Mhm.
that also I feel like is something to be talked about in regards to the attitude. And I don't know if Booga was just saying it for content, but like he's like, why should I care? Like, oh yeah, Yamzo Crimea River. But like if it was him, right? If it was Booga, he'd be fucking bitching on the timeline. Like he would have an absolute aneurysm. You know what I'm saying? Like,
He
because
might just
it
lose his creator
it's
skin.
completely it is completely unfair. I mean, it just in every regard. And like, dude, Eomzo is 17, like brother, you know, and he was breaking down, crying as a result of this, and that's totally understandable. When this is your career, when this is your livelihood, and when you're just a competitor like that, getting robbed on a technicality or like if you've played traditional sports. There are those games where like you get robbed by a ref where they're just out for you the entire game and you lose because of it. Like losing because you weren't enough is one thing that just pushes you to like get better and drive, but losing on something outside of your control that shouldn't happen that way is just like it's the worst feeling as a competitor. And I feel like I totally sympathize with Eomzo and Rise because that's just I mean it's totally unfair, and now we'll never know what would have happened, who would have taken home, you know, the championship and whatever, and the global qualification. I mean, we have to talk about the fact that now they have to, you know, they would have had a qualification spot had they won for globals at the end of the year, which kind of takes a bit of the pressure off in the rest of the grands leading up to that. So now they have to, you know, they have more pressure on next grands and whatever. Like there's a domino effect to something as simple as booting
I'm
someone off
not.
for 1 or 2 games.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say that Eomzo and Rise, after 2 games wouldn't or would win because of course other teams had
Yeah,
very
we
very
have
insane
no
games to
clue,
run.
but
Yeah, 100%. There's a possibility. I'm not
yeah.
going to take that away. Of
But now
course,
we'll
they
never
were
know.
in
That's
first
what
after
I'm getting at. Is like
exactly
we
right,
don't know
and
how things would have played out had it all been fair. And
and it's not taking away from other teams saying that there's a possibility that they could have won. It's just saying that like at the end of the day, this team was in first after 8 games, which is 8 of 12 games,
by
so
a significant
2/3 of the way
margin
through the
too.
tournament.
Like
Yeah,
they wouldn't
yeah,
have had
exactly.
to have crazy games to stay in first. That's like
Yeah,
that's the thing. Like, but
it's
anyway,
not like they would have had to push a top five
I
every game to.
but I mean the problem is one that my first instinct was that it was somebody's foul play and not a streak of unluck. I think that speaks to how
I mean, I feel
degenerate
like
that.
anybody could have guessed that. To be fair, like
Yeah,
I would have guessed the same thing.
but like in other esports, I don't think I would think that. You know what I'm saying? Like I think it's
Mhm.
Fortnite's reputation. It's the youngness and the immaturity and the naivete like of this community and of this esport that make me think that. Um, and it just like the culture of it is so bad, and we wonder why there's no money in the space and why the esport doesn't have the potential. You know, like Monster talked about this about like the potential of the product of competitive Fortnite. It just will never be actualized when stuff like this happens so frequently and so regularly. You have the cheater problem. I mean, even the OCE grand finalist who got first just got DQ'd today, and it rolled down to second place. The the prize. So
Yeah,
they
yeah,
won on a
yeah.
technicality days after the fact because they realized and this mean and I saw a tweet since April of 2022 there has not been an OCE Grand Finals where first place has not been DQ'd after the fact, which is just insane to think about. Like,
Um, I feel like OC is such a small region where when shit happens, no one cares enough. Like I'm not trying to say that
yeah,
as
for sure.
disrespectful. It's just been the comms reputation this
Yeah,
far. Like I know I'm not in the Fort Com as much as I used to be, but
yeah,
and I don't watch. I until this Grands, I hadn't watched a Grands in
yeah,
maybe a season or two. But like, regardless of that, it's like OC's had this reputation where it's like, oh, it's the weakest region, no one cares type shit. Like, if a dude gets banned, first place gets banned, no one's gonna give like, no one in any other region is gonna really give a fuck unless it's a bigger name.
yeah,
But it's also like, it's a competitive integrity thing where it's like,
yeah,
in regardless of the region, it's like even if it's small or not, it's like
yeah,
if first place is getting banned, first place is getting banned,
yeah,
regardless of the region. Like
yeah.
something clearly
Which
happened and
just
something
means
needs
that
to be addressed.
it kind of
Like,
invalidates the entire grand finals too because
mhm.
now you know that somebody was cheating for the entire duration of that grand finals. You don't know how anything else would play out
Well,
had they not been
it gets rid
playing.
of all the kills they got. It
Yeah,
gets rid of all the
exactly.
placements they had to
So
play. It gets rid of
it
all the mid game fights that
yeah,
they had
you
to
talk
take.
about all the butterfly effects that could have like we have no clue who would have won or could have won had the cheaters been found and eliminated before the grand final stage. Um
Like
but I
shout
mean
out Worthy for getting second and now being in first. Like
yeah,
shout
yeah.
out, but at the same time, it's like,
Yeah.
did you like? Would this have stayed
Right. Right, right, right.
the? Would
No, I
this have
mean it
stayed had
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. And from an org management perspective, like it's so infuriating because I know that this means like that only makes it that much harder for us to be profitable and to continue to run and all of that stuff. Um, I mean, you take a look. There was a graph that came out right after Grands of the top 8 teams in NA, right? And in terms of earnings after this Grands had been accounted for. And I mean, dude, you have Dignitas, Xset, every single tier one that just has
Oh yeah, yeah.
insane amounts of money. Um, and then at the very bottom, number 8, you had Prodigy. Um, which one, not to toot our own horn, but I do think is a testament to Prodigy because we're working with way less budget, and I do mean way less budget than like a Dignitas. Dignitas, they're a well-run organization. This is not a
Oh
slander at
yeah.
them at all, but they can
Well,
buy
no, yeah.
FNCS wins. They can buy whoever they want to get them wins. That's how it will always be. Um,
It's not
but
discrediting them. It's just the
no,
truth.
absolutely not. I mean, no, they
They're
everything
doing
else
everything
about them
right.
is a fantastic organization, and like part of the reason they can continue to buy wins is because they're so well run. Like that's just how it is. It's kind of
Mhm.
like you look at franchises in any of the major sports, and NFL, MLB, whatever. It's kind of the same way, right? You have the organizations that are successful continue to be successful because they sell more tickets and whatever, and Dignitas is kind of the same way. Um, but for anyone who is that Prodigy or below, right? It becomes really difficult because we're not in that position yet. We don't have that, the abundance of cash flow coming in. So
Mhm.
when Fortnite esports is the laughing stock that it is and is the joke that it is, it makes it incredibly difficult for us to move forward and try and especially with business relationships, going to sponsors and trying to get investors and all of that stuff. They don't want to touch the game. I mean, we talked about this when we did our Panda episode. Um, there are so many companies that have so much marketing money to throw at things like Fortnite tournaments, but they won't because of the reputation. Um,
Mhm.
it's just really disappointing because I know that there's so much potential for Fortnite as an esport, and I want it to be a place where people can have full-time careers and where money can be flowing in, and the esports industry as a whole can be profitable and have careers and all of that and grow. Um, but it takes a culture change, and that is what I fear won't come. That Fort will just run itself into the ground because of the players, especially their choice to continue to act like children. It's kind of like you want to act like children, you're going to get treated like children, and that's
Mhm.
what's happening. Um, I feel like in every other esport, there is a level, there's some kind of mental flip. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect, right? But even you take like a Valorant, right? There is a level, like you have kids that are the same age competing, right?
Yeah.
But there's a level of professionalism to it that I don't think is present in the Fort space. And I do think a lot of that relies on orgs because orgs just let these people get away with anything. And that's not what should be happening. There should be an expectation of professionalism. There should be an expectation of presentation and upholding the values of the organization. And it loops back to the conversation we've had 1,000 times about what is an org and how should they run. It's not just a friend group or a Twitter team that pops up and shovels together some funding just to sign a player for 2 months and hope they can place well in a grands and then disappear.
Mhm.
You take your
Yeah.
33s, you take your extras, all of those orgs that have been pop-up orgs. So it takes a culture change at the org level too. But there's so much in the pillars of what is Fortnite competitive. There's so much that needs to change for it to be profitable and for it to be the esport that it could be. And I fear that it won't be. And
Yeah.
that's part of why we're rebuilding the way we are at Prodigy and trying to do things different. I mean, we were talking a little bit before we started recording of like, we just dropped Death and Tahi, which by all accounts, if you're looking at an org from a traditional perspective, were our best assets. Um,
Yeah.
and like, that's not to say that we didn't necessarily want to keep them, but or that they're not good assets. They are, but we have to rebuild different. Like we're going to do things different because we need things to be different, not just for us at our level, for our organization, but for Fortnite esports as a whole. and hopefully we can kind of pave a pathway that other orgs can start to take in the future. Um, and you're seeing this now. I mean, the people we're modeling after are changing and evolving and adapting too. FaZe just announced their merger. FaZe Banks taking over as the CEO, trying to rebuild what they built as a response to the stock tanking after it being the first to go public. Which, I mean, all credit to FaZe that they got to the point where they could actually be on the NASDAQ, on Wall Street, and give it a try, right? We were talking about experimentation in this industry as a whole and in content and whatnot. It's a big thing, like to be able to just give it something a try and say, okay, if it doesn't work out, we've learned something, and if it does work out, then we'll continue doing it. But yeah, no, I'm excited with where this Grands took us, and hopefully, like I the comp viewership was really good. I can hope that the culture will start to change in a way to adapt, to realize the potential of what the Fort esport product could be. We'll see if it happens. I'm really hoping that by the time this Globals comes around, there's been some kind of change in the industry, but I don't know if I see it coming.
I think, yeah, there's a lot to talk about this Grands if we were to actually dive deep on just like what the difference was from day 1 to day 2 and like what went wrong for certain teams, but there's no point in covering that because you'll probably see that on every other page, and you probably already seen all the tweets if you're in the Fort Com. Something else to cover, I feel like, is, right after Grands, I think, was it yesterday or today? Clix's announcement of teaming up with JBL.
Yeah, that's huge.
Which is interesting because listen, he's a co-owner of Xset now.
Yeah.
He has, of course, his businesses on the side that he works with. He's still doing this content thing, definitely taking away a lot of time from him. And now he's a partnership with JBL Studio or JBL Audio.
Yeah. No, it's big. It's a
Didn't
big
expect
step.
it either. Didn't expect it.
No, it's an understandable step though. I think it's a really big.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Clix, I think it's not new, right? It's not a new idea for a creator to work with.
It's not surprising.
An org.
It's not surprising that he has a partnership with them.
Yeah.
It's surprising that it happened now, and it's surprising that it's JBL because it's like there's so much to choose from. It's not underrating JBL. It's like you wouldn't expect JBL.
I know what you're getting. It's kind of the same as like when Cypher PK announced his Rocket partnership.
Exactly.
Like you're like, oh, a peripherals company, SteelSeries, Logitech, maybe, but like, to go with Rocket, like it's not that they're a bad brand by any stretch of the imagination. It's just they're not exactly mainstream, and maybe that's the goal, right? Is to become more mainstream through the brands of someone like Cypher or Clix. But
for sure,
what I was saying is, I like it as a move from Clix because what he's doing, like when I said it's not new, what I meant by that is the idea of a creator partnership with a brand is not new, but it's new to the Fortnite space. Like it really hasn't been done on a massive level like this in the Fort space, and Clix is kind of actively bridging the gap between Fort creators and other gaming creators, but also just creators in general. He's kind of becoming this hybrid, and he's stepping more and more, I think, into a traditional creator role. And I like that. I like that. I like that accessibility. I like that the blending of those because I think that's when you talk about longevity, right? Because a lot of we talk about if you're purely comp, there's not a lot of longevity to your career. You start doing content, but even if you're doing content and it's all dependent on a game, if it's all dependent around Fortnite or whatever, there's not longevity in that either. If Fort goes down, and if Fort collapses, or say you make competitive content and comp stops being supported in the next 5 years or whatever, right? So I think as a creator, being able to move your talents and your abilities into different subject matter, and like this is something that I've explored a lot recently as a creator. is stepping into other things. Is stepping into things other than gaming.
Mhm.
Gaming content is one niche of content. Now there are hundreds of thousands of sub niches within that, right? What game you want to main, what kind of content you want to make within that game. Like even within Fortnite, right? You have tips and tricks, or competitive, or just pub stomping, or whatever, right? There's so many things that you can do. But I think as a creator, like if you talk about longevity, being able to shift your brand to whatever type of content, like for me, talking about philosophy, talking about, I don't know, dating advice, talking about whatever, right, that interests me, and being able to do that and support that as a creator is a big thing. So I think Clicks
Mhm.
is kind of bridging that gap, and bringing practices and industry standards that are present in other types of content and other content niches other than gaming into the gaming space, which is
Mhm.
good because I know there are a lot of people that come to my mind immediately that I'm like, if Fortnite, let's say the Fortnite servers were to shut down tomorrow, they would immediately need to move back home and get a normal job and whatever. Like they would not be able to transition into something, and that's what I want for them. I want creators to be able to um, continue doing what they love, even if the subject matter needs to change. So it's a good move from Clicks. I mean, congrats on such a major. I mean, JBL's a massive company, and he'll be able to do some cool things with that um, in the near future.
Yeah. I mean, outside of clicks, we've seen a few partnerships recently, and one that's notable that we talked about when we first wanted to talk about experimenting with this new idea of weekly updates about the community and anything else going around it. Agent and NFL.
Yeah, that I was okay. To be completely honest, I was disappointed by what the announcement actually was
I
because
was disappointed because I thought it was a combination of maybe an event happening
right.
or maybe some
Y-
sort of big, like
Yeah, I
huge
thought it actually
investment
had
into it.
something to do with the NFL as an organization. That was
Yeah.
like that was the vibe that I was getting. Um, and I mean, I had known for a time that Agent was getting funded by an NFL player. I had
Yeah, that's what
known
I was
that.
gonna
So
say. I didn't know that, but I saw. I'm not gonna
yeah,
name names because I'm not
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
try
yeah,
and get
yeah,
people into shit, and I don't really care that much. But I know someone that I've talked to and someone that I know
yeah,
personally has he made a tweet about it,
yeah,
or he told me something, or not told me something. Yeah,
yeah,
made a tweet about it, and he said it, and I wouldn't say I'm surprised, but I wouldn't say that I expected it either.
yeah, yeah.
Like it's one of those things where it's like
It was
even
a little
though
weird
you
when
didn't
you heard it
expect
for the
it,
first time.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
weird when you heard it, but it's not like
yeah,
one of those things where it's like, oh shit, that's like the craziest thing I've ever heard type of thing.
yeah.
It's not something like that. It's just
No,
like, oh, just now I know. Like
so
now
I
you know.
that was like, so having that knowledge beforehand when they did the teaser for that announcement and they flashed the NFL logo and it was like Agent X NFL, I was thinking, oh, the NFL player who's been investing into the org for a considerable amount of time. I mean, to my knowledge, basically the entirety of the time Agent was around. Like, or at
It's a
least
good investor. It's a
when
smart.
they yeah
It's a
when
smart
they
business move
started
from them.
like signing big names, like when Agent like
Hmm.
made their boom onto the scene very quickly, and it seemed like they had unlimited money. It's like, oh, that's why. But when they made that announcement, I'm thinking, oh, the investor uses connections to organize something with the actual organization of the NFL. I was thinking like, oh, maybe Agent's going to be the official esports team for an NFL team, because that was something that I've talked about a lot, as where I think that esports could go, is that blending of the traditional sports and the esports industries. I mean, there's sister industries. Like
Yeah.
there's so much overlap. There's so much similarity. And I mean, like EAFC or FIFA had like their whole
Yeah. Yeah.
league.
Yeah.
Every MLS team has an esports, like a FIFA team for esports. Like that's
Yeah.
because it just makes sense. It's a natural partnership collaboration. Um, and I feel like that is the direction that esports may need to head into. And it just would make sense to me, to be connected in that way, because they're already so similar. Like a lot of the people in full-time positions in the esports scene came from the sports industry. Like there's just so much overlap. So I was thinking like this would be a massive step in, the blending of specifically Fortnite and the sports industry as a whole. So for them to just go, oh yeah, he's a content creator for us, even though he had already been funding the org and whatever, like on the back end, it was really underwhelming for me.
It's a cool announcement at the end of the day because
Yeah.
it's like an NFL player on an esports team. Great. It's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
It's like when we saw I forgot who it was, but it was who was the guy that signed with FaZe? NFL player, I think it was. Was it FaZe?
They've had a
Was it
lot.
FaZe?
They've had a lot of
Yeah.
celebrities be
But
like.
when
I mean,
they're
Snoop
when
Dogg was on there. Bronny was on there for a
yeah,
time. Like,
like
yeah,
it was outside of Bronny, like it was I'm pretty sure there was an NFL player. I forgot his name though.
probably.
But
Yeah,
when
just
that happened, it was like, yeah, FaZe, damn, signing with the NFL. Like they didn't have any connection to it, so it makes sense. But when there's people that know about the whole, NFL investing, not taking shots at agent, smart idea, great business move.
yeah. I mean, dude,
Honestly,
getting an
like
investor
if I
is
had the opportunity as an organization owner, which I am,
absolutely.
I would do it 100% because
Yeah. Oh
that's like
yeah.
clearly
Oh,
someone's
dude.
interested in my business,
If someone hit
taking
up,
it.
if someone hit up Prodigy and said, "Hey, we want to, I'm an NFL player and I want to fund, your whatever," of course
Who's
I
gonna
would
say
do that.
no?
I mean,
It's an
bro, like,
NFL player. Like they're
yeah,
not. It's not that they're not credible.
getting your players paid for, getting your media trips paid for, like
Yeah,
that's the dream, especially
and
because
it's
there's
not like
not a ton of money
it's
in
not like they're
esports right
not
now.
credible either. Like it's
Right,
not like a
right,
random source like in 2
right.
a.m. Subway.
No, I
Shots
just
fired.
oh, dude,
Like
oh, we should. Okay, actually, we should talk about
yeah,
that. I'm gonna
we'll
write
go
that
cover
down.
that after. I know I saw.
Oh my gosh.
It's not like something like that where it's like this investor, is known for certain things,
Right,
has
right.
not the
Yeah,
most credible thing.
absolutely.
It's
No,
an NFL player.
I
If
was
they're
just
not
thinking that it would
credible, they're not
be,
going to be in the league half the
yeah,
time.
I was just thinking that it would be a step beyond what I already knew. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
I
yeah,
was thinking like,
for
oh, he
sure.
pulled some strings,
And
like,
even
because that
and
honestly,
even
like,
as
that would be one of my like, you want to talk long term goals? I would love to implement an esports team into an NFL or an
yeah,
NBA organization, and like have a partnership there, have a blend there.
I would have I would have been very happy even outside that. Like that's a great goal and I could see that in the future. I'd be very happy if it was even like a small event that
Yeah,
happened,
yeah,
maybe a follow up of because this was announced, was it just before Grant? Like literally
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah,
before
yeah.
Grant, like a day before or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a follow up tournament after this insane grands that we just saw in
Yeah,
EU and of course NA,
yeah,
I assume it's probably an NA tournament. If it's not and it's EU and NA, sick.
yeah,
But like like if it was like a mini globals where like they just did a cool tournament with Agent and NFL and they made
yeah,
something work, I would have been happy to hear that. That's a great
yeah,
Agent's a great organization. And knowing that, of course, let's say nobody knew about this whole NFL agent funding thing, it would have been a sick like even if they did know, to be honest, it still would have been a sick idea. Like the NFL is combining with Agent to host a tournament. Like that would
yeah,
be sick to know about. Or maybe it was like sometime
yeah,
yeah, it was like something cool.
yeah,
But I think the whole content creator thing, it's great representation of brand and whatnot. It's
yeah,
also like it's not what people expected, but they're
yeah.
not gonna complain either.
Yeah, well, I do think that like having the foreknowledge, like already knowing that he was funding the org, uh, kind of made the announcement super underwhelming for me. Maybe for other people,
Mm.
it was more surprising. Like, oh, cool, like like, and it like, don't get me wrong, it is very cool that there are NFL players actively involved in the Fortnite space. I mean, you talk about like another big one that comes to mind that I love is Kurt Benkert, who was he was Aaron Rodgers' backup on Green Bay for a little bit. So he was a quarterback in the NFL for I think 5 years, and he started doing like a Madden series where he was like breaking down his thought process and being able to read the field like a quarterback, was really cool. And now he does a podcast with Ninja every week about the NFL,
Yeah.
and like to see that blending of the industries again is super cool. And that's what I want to see more of. So don't get me wrong at all. Like I love that there are big names and big figures in the space like that. It just was like that specific announcement I thought was going to be a bigger step for Fortnite esports as a whole, because that's always the
I think
perspective that I'm coming from.
I think one of the connections that got me surprised the most, and I was actually like super hyped for when I saw it, and it just didn't pan out the way I wanted it to, was this whole Steph Curry thing with Clicks Epic Whale and them back like a few months ago.
Yeah, the
That's
gold.
do
It
you
was
remember
like
that? That
it
shit
was just
was
a
so
creative map, right? It was
it
just
was
Golden
just a
State.
creative and I was so
Yeah,
interested to see what this was because he was adding pro
Yeah.
players like
Yeah.
Clicks and
Well,
Epic
I
and
mean,
like
it was
whoever else.
100% his social media manager. Like it wasn't like, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like
100%.
yeah.
It's not Steph himself, which
Yeah.
is makes sense. Like the dude, it makes sense. Like no one's gonna
Yeah.
attack him for that. But like,
Yeah.
it was just like, yo, he was like tweeting it every other day. Like he was reposting shit from other
Yeah,
pro
they
players,
were
of course,
making
the
it seem like it
manager.
was going to be some massive
And I thought
thing.
it was gonna be
Yeah.
some type of collab, maybe a skin thing, maybe it was like a tournament thing, maybe it was
Yeah.
like a video. It
Yeah.
just panned out to be a creative map, which is great and all for the community, I guess, but not nowhere near what people wanted, to be
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
It's Stephen Curry at the end of the day,
Yeah.
literally the greatest shooter in NBA history and one of the greatest players to ever live.
Yeah.
And when you just hear it's a creative map, it's kind of like
Yeah.
after all
Yeah.
that, like that's kind of
Which
my representation with this thing where it was like when you knew about the whole NFL funding, and even if you didn't, it's like it's great, content creator great, and creative map
yeah.
great. I just wanted more.
Yeah, right.
Plain and
No,
simple,
and
right?
I feel like there's such a desire for an elevation in Fortnite esports. Like, you know, like we talked about, the product is incomplete in a lot of ways. And I feel like we're now, especially that we've got the globals year-long format. I love that format, by the way. Like I love 3 majors a year where each major is a qualifier for an end of the year LAN. I have every goal and every intention to make it to globals this year. Like that's my big trip. If I can make that, I will be a very happy lad.
Global's like predict. Is there a date yet?
October, I believe. I don't think there's a
Interesting.
specific date within October, but it's either October or November.
Interesting.
Yeah, but huge. Like I'm very excited with that format. It's big. It's always an event, which is huge. I love that. But I do feel like there's an urge for growth. There's an urge for development in the space because and I think it's stronger now because we've gotten tastes of it recently. I feel like the production quality being raised, the new, you know, competitive format where we have a global LAN every year. You know, the effort put into everything. I mean, even like small details like the fact that they have a clean feed now for people like Aussie to do watch parties. You know,
Oh,
like
yeah.
that's like the attention to small detail. Like the comp team, and we've had this conversation a lot, but the comp team is doing a great job. They are getting, you know, black tied at every corner by suits, by investors, you know, like that are withholding so many decisions. Like I guarantee you, Vivid and all the casters and Hogman, who gets added in everything, like the whole comp team who is responsible for the growing and maintaining of comp knows what we want and is trying to implement it. I guarantee you. It is Epic as a whole, Epic as, you know, the boards and the CEOs and the investors or whatever that are withholding a lot of those changes from happening because right now Fort doesn't want the esport to exist in its best form. Doesn't really want the esport to exist at all. They are pushing towards the Robloxification of Fortnite, and that's still happening and it's still working. You know, I would love to see the esports product part of Fortnite come to fruition. That it would trump. I mean, it would trump every other esport, and it's so not even close. I don't even know what analogy to draw.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be the best esport in the world by such an insane margin that everything else would seem like a pity show comparatively if
Well,
Fortnite reached its
even
truest
now,
potential.
yeah. Well, even nowadays, it's still like, what
It still
game
has better viewership
has?
than almost every other esport, but just like in
It's
terms of
not, I'm talking outside the viewership. It's like we know what peak Fortnite was like back in the
yeah,
day,
yeah,
nostalgia, whatever it was. Which God forbid we ever go back to nostalgia. That should stay back in the past. It should
yeah,
stay in the past.
yeah,
Whatever. That's a topic to cover. We've covered multiple times in the past,
yeah,
but we know what peak Fortnite was like.
yeah,
We know why people have these high standards for games coming out. Like when Splitgate first came out,
mm-hmm.
2 weeks, everybody was saying it was the greatest game. Everything was so sick
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Gone.
There's
Fall
there's
Guys,
such a
same
there's such
thing.
a
Was around
newness
a few
bias.
months.
Yeah,
Gone.
for sure.
Among Us, few months up to a year. Gone.
And yeah, it's just because things are new. Like we get so
I will
bored.
say it now. Valorant is the closest game, and that was an FPS game. Valorant or COD, and it was they were both FPS games.
If COD was not the same product every year, I think COD could actually really be a good contender. And
They would have a run at it.
Here's
I don't know if
here's
it
my
beat
thing
it,
about
they'd have a
COD.
run.
COD is, when you think about what is the skeleton of a shooter game, COD is the skeleton, right? It has nothing besides the skeleton. So if you love the skeleton, that's great. Like when I bought Modern Warfare 2, the remastered, so last year's, and I played a lot of it in the first month. It was really fun. Then it started to get really repetitive, really boring. And then COD would become my go-to when I only wanted point, shoot, and movement. Like that was it. You have a little bit of utility, but like that's a really sparse term for utility in that, like when you compare, like when you're also saying utility in the sense of like Valorant, that's a lot more utility than a grenade in COD or whatever, right? So but COD is bare bones.
Sorry.
it is the foundations of what make a shooter, and only the foundations of what make a shooter. There's nothing else to it.
Yeah.
So that
Which is fair.
if that's your thing, and you can bear that repetition, then it's a great shooter. It's really good. It's really fun. But for me, it only became when I wanted to play a shooter, but I didn't want to have any of the gimmicks, right? Overwatch, I don't want to deal with a character shooter, so Overwatch and Valorant are out. I don't want to build, and I don't want to have like and I don't want third person, so I don't want to play Fortnite. Like all of them slow, like Apex, the movement gap is too high, and you still have character shooter. So it's like, if I just want a bare bones pure shooter, COD is the answer.
Well, it's also the time frame. Like just like we say with everything else in life, especially when we compare generations, it's like where COD came out was a whole different time than what's currently out in this day. Like,
well, and that's what I do think that has done COD a disservice. The fact that it's existed as essentially the same product. I mean, we talk about this with 2K and with all the sports games as well that do a yearly installment. I think that's the problem, is the model of yearly installments in a franchise is crazy. I like the idea of releasing a brand new quote unquote game every single year in a franchise is insanity, because there's no room for creativity. There's no room for new mechanics. There's no, like, for all that stuff. I would much rather put COD on a 3-year cycle or a something like that, right? Or even you want to talk about expand it to 2K and Madden and all that. Like have a 3-year cycle where every year you're updating the rosters and stuff, right? And you're updating stats and all that, but keep keep the core gameplay mechanics, because like they're trying to do new things, and every year it's just like, that's why are you changing that? That's stupid. Like they're trying to make it.
Continue. Finish.
Yeah, they're trying to repackage the same product every year, and they're changing minor things. And what they end up doing is, just for the sake of change, they end up changing stupid shit. So then it's just like, this is bad. But it's the same thing every year. COD is the same thing every year. 2K is the same thing every year. Madden's is the same thing every year.
Fuck 2K, and I'll tell you why. Anybody that saw 2K, and I swear to God, some of you are actually like delusional, because anybody that saw 2K past 2K19 as a better version or anything changed, you are delusional.
Right.
2K17 was arguably one of the better 2Ks because the slider wasn't 2K16 was great. 2K17 slider change, one of the better slider changes I've ever seen for shooting wise. Their mechanics, graphics, huge boost from 2K16.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I love 2K16. I insanely fell in love with 2K17. I would play that thing. I would enjoy playing offline and playing challenges. That's how much I enjoyed it as a kid. But that slider change was the greatest thing to ever happen. One of the greatest things to ever happen in 2K history.
Yeah.
And after that, the whole draft and play in 2K18 and 2K19, where they tried to make it even better. After 2K19, nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Literally,
that's the
nothing
thing,
has changed.
When the
other
pressure
than the fact
is
that a green light isn't always a green light anymore.
When the pressure is to release a new game every year, even when you have good things, because you're going to have to change something every year. So that's what I mean, is they start changing things that don't need to be changed. Like there are parts of any game that's been released that doesn't do a yearly installment. all the good things stay the same, and that's the point, right? So that's what I mean is like with games like COD or with games like 2K or whatever, like get on, just have updates, have a base game for. And I know that doesn't work with their monetization model, and that's part of the issue is they're just trying to money suck. Like the fact that people still pay $60 or now $70 per year for a 2K installment, like
Don't know why I bought it.
you are a moron. I don't know what to tell you. You are a moron.
What are you like? You are delusional. What are you see? It's one thing to go and buy in Fortnite skins because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, cool new skin. Like
Exactly.
they tried something cool with this.
Yeah,
That's
no, you're
great.
buying the same
$10.
repackaged bullshit every year.
You
Really,
are
all you're
buying
doing,
the same thing.
yeah,
And people still spend on the gold edition or whatever it's called now, the platinum edition. Why?
Yeah.
There's nothing. You're
Yeah.
getting VC that you're gonna
So-
spend in a day and
Yeah.
then not get anything out of packs. They're all shit. Bro, we went from just having diamonds and pink diamonds, which was great. Now we have fucking I don't even know what they're called, bro.
Yeah.
Bro, I don't even know what the cards are called anymore, bro. Like
Yeah.
the ranking of
No,
these
that's what I
cards-
mean. Like
It's
trying to
just
pump out
not-
new
why?
content every year it just doesn't work. It does not make
Bro,
a good
Ronnie
game, and it does not
2K
make a good system.
Ronnie 2K follows this fundamental, and he's been following it for so long. And I swear, purposely, he doesn't try to come up with new ideas. Like it gets to the bro. Whenever 2K releases, I'm pretty sure the new 2K always releases in August or I think it's like July or something or September, something between July and September. Whenever it releases, I swear Ronnie 2K the day before is like, oh shit, we have to change something about the game.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
something
exactly.
changes and hype comes up in the community for 2 days. And then when they
Yeah.
see it in the game, they're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And park doesn't change and nothing changes.
Yeah.
And it just goes down to shit. And it's this whole
Yeah.
thing of a new game every year, bro.
Right.
It's like the 2K team, the 2K devs,
Yeah.
regardless of a new game every year, are still procrastinating just as much as I do with school. And they're just
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
last second they go, shit, we gotta change something.
Yeah. No,
It's
yeah.
it's the exact same shit.
So
It's the
that's-
greatest comparison because it's
that's-
Ronnie 2K.
And that's my problem with COD too. Is that it's the same shit every
Yeah.
year, repackaged. Nothing really changes. You know, I mean, they're doing remasters just to try and like match the every year. You know, it's like it.
I think I'm so pissed about it because I know how much I love the NBA and like I
Right.
fell out of love for it, but like I'm so far into it now.
Yeah.
And even like before, like as a kid, playing 2K was like genuinely, I would not go out with friends or come home just because I'm like, yo, I have to finish my challenges for today. What am I doing? Like
Yeah.
I'd finish speed through my homework and get on that game. Bro, anybody that's still buying this game is actually delusional. And it's
Yeah.
been like if you bought 2K20, that's one thing. If you bought 2K21, that's another thing. If you bought anything past 2K21,
Yeah.
straight delusion, bro. Like
Yeah.
actually delusion. I don't know
Yeah,
what you saw.
I don't know. So in terms of that, like in terms of what makes an esport, what makes a good game, even gaming's at a weird spot because COVID, like
Games
the
in a weird
surge,
spot. Yeah.
gaming culture has evolved so much in the past 5 years, 6 years. Like, really, like right before COVID, and then like COVID especially, gaming culture has gotten it's so far beyond like unhealthy. It's so far beyond like I can't even find the word that I'm looking for, but it's just bad. It's just terrible. And like people wonder why, you know, they're bored with games. It's like maybe because you've played the same game for 12 hours every day for the past 5 years. Like, don't you think your brain might be a little bit fried
Just possibly.
from doing the
a
same
little bit.
thing for, you know, hours and hours and hours on end a day for years, like years at this point? I mean, like, dude, like my fort battery is gone. I cannot like I can't put those type of hours into the game anymore because I've exhausted them all. I've put enough in where I'm like, holy shit, every game starts to feel the same.
I don't think it's age either. It's really not
No.
age.
No,
it's just a burnout. It's a burnout of how many
100%.
hours. If I was 11 and I got to 16, let's say I played 5 years and I was
Yeah.
16 to 21, I played 4. I think I'd be the same burnt out as
Yeah.
11 to 16 because I just know at the end of the day that
and
I've played
it
this
becomes all games too, because it's just like it's a dopamine thing, right? If a game releases dopamine, like especially for me with shooters, right? I've had this problem with shooters, especially in the past like year. No shooter is like satisfying enough anymore because
Yeah.
you get that dopamine release when you get a kill or when you hit a shot or whatever. But it's like that diminishes, like you become accustomed to that, right? Your brain literally becomes
Yeah.
accustomed to the amount of dopamine being released, where it needs more and more and more and more, which is why you get addicted and play longer. But then there is a point where that just plateaus, where you cannot get any more out of it anymore, because you're just so, your brain's so fried, it's so used to the dopamine releases that it's just, there's just nothing. And that's where I feel like so many people are at with gaming now, because gaming culture got so obsessive and it encouraged like degenerate hours of
Yeah.
gaming so much. I mean, dude, when we were 11, 12, 13, we were not sitting inside on $5,000 PCs playing 10 hours of Fortnite a day. That just wasn't happening. And like that, the kids are doing
I
that
mean,
now. Like they're
yeah, no,
frying their
we
brains
weren't.
before.
If anything came close to gaming, we were on COD,
Yeah.
we were on
But even
Minecraft.
that's on console. We were
That was
playing with
on
our
that was on
friends,
console,
usually in the
and
same place. Like we were playing like co-op on the couch. You know what I mean? Like there was so
yeah,
much
like
like,
and no one's playing 10 hours,
yeah,
bro.
no.
Like
But
we
like
we were playing 2-3 hours, and then we'd be like, let's go do something outside, or like we'll be like, time to go home.
gaming culture and internet culture, I'm kind of using interchangeably here, but like internet culture has gotten to the point now where people are truly living their lives entirely through the internet and entirely through their PC setup. And that has created an infinite number of problems and such a bad culture, such a bad way of living. I mean, you want to talk about like what is the root of all the problems on the internet? It's that people are prioritizing the internet over real life. Like that is
Yeah.
the main issue. I mean,
It's one thing to say that, internet's your escape and it's like you enjoy the
mhm,
internet world more than the real world, but it's another thing to neglect the real world.
absolutely. Well, and that's what I'm saying, right? Like I use the internet because I want to make content a career. That's great. Like it's a good thing. I didn't realize until, because I was all online last semester. So I was basically home all day. I was, basically like all of my interaction was through like Discord or Twitch streams or whatever, right? And then now I'm on campus this semester again, and I'm hanging out with people. I'm like 3 days a week I don't touch my PC at all. Like Tuesday through Thursday I have classes and I'm on campus all day, and I'm not doing any of that. And I've it's almost like a detox that I've had. Like I've realized that um people truly like I look at everything in this space differently now. I look at all these people on Twitch, I look at all these people on Twitter. Like the biggest realization, the big epiphany for me was I realized that I don't need the internet, and these people need the internet. They have built their life, the foundations of their life, the pillars of their life are online. Their social life is entirely through the internet. Their like job is entirely through the internet, or they are so embedded in their escape from the real world that they prioritize it over the real world. They are willingly choosing to embed themselves like in a matrix like trance, that where the
Even though
internet
we
is
know
more.
though
Yeah,
we know the next generation is capable of taking this world's technology to a whole different level, I also know that the generation that's currently like that we're living in right now, Gen Z,
yeah,
whatever it is, or whatever the next one's called, I forgot
Gen
what the name
Alpha,
is.
yeah,
Whatever it is, as a society,
yeah.
we're probably fucked.
Oh, we're beyond fucked. I mean, like that. Truly, I mean, I look at these
The way
people.
people think and the way
Yeah,
people use the internet
yeah,
as a means of exerting hate, or whatever it is the word is for, like, just
yeah,
shitting on other people, whatever it is,
yeah,
it's so much different than it was pre-quarantine.
yeah,
So much different.
yeah. No, 100%. Like 100%. I think COVID had a lot to do with that. Because it, it
100%.
made it made the internet our only means of access to the real world, and that's what the internet was always intended to be. It was always intended to be a way to connect the world, not be the world. And now with things like COVID, and I just think the development of the internet in general, we have now replaced what is supposed to be the connection with the real world. I mean, like the internet is more real to most people, I think, than the real world is at this point. I mean, even if it's on the scale of social media versus like, the people that we interact with or we know of in this space who, I mean, I know of kids who literally do not leave their room almost ever. They haven't left their house in months. Like you're talking people that are genuinely like, I mean, I would put it this way. There are some people that it would not surprise me that if they were given an option to digitize their mental consciousness and literally live in the internet, that they would do so. That like they literally
Yeah.
are so deep in it that they would abandon their physical body to live in the internet. And that's what some people are doing metaphorically already. A lot of people, especially in this space, like especially in the
Well,
gaming space, especially in the Twitch space, like
yeah.
it, and
I
that's,
hope
yeah.
people realize that, like, if you're okay, let's say you're looking up to somebody in the internet space. Like, let's say
Mhm.
you're looking up to, let's throw a Fortnite pro in here. I hope you understand that a Fortnite pro probably has IRL balance.
Well,
Most of
either
them
that
have,
or, but I would argue a lot of them don't, but they're shitty people and they're terrible role models. I mean, like, to just
yeah,
be straight up,
that too.
like now some of them have really good ones. That's for sure. Um, but yeah, like what they present on the internet's just a job for them. It's just like it. Like think of the internet as their office. You show up to your office, you're a different person at your office, so you present something different. Like you're not the way you are off out of work when you're at your office, and like that's what you have to think about. These
Yeah.
people who have internet careers, when they're clocked in, it's different. That's not them. You know what I'm saying? It not in the sense of like they're all being completely fake, even though a lot of streamers and pros, that's like the whole thing on the internet. But anyway, no, but that was my biggest realization was that there are people who literally need the internet, like they have nothing of value in their life if you take the
I
internet
think,
away from them.
yeah, like we were talking about right before the podcast started, like just catching up. We were saying how we both have stuff going outside now. Like it's not like
Mhm.
saying we didn't have stuff going on outside now. It's just a lot
A
more
lot
than what it
more,
was a
yeah.
few months ago.
Oh,
Um,
my
that
balance has gotten way better, and I feel way better than I ever have, and like it makes
I think
doing
I
this
think one of
stuff
those things for
so
me
much
has been going
easier.
back to. I think one of those things for me has been going back to the gym again.
Yeah.
Um, Second thing for me has to be, I actually like a lot of people that I think what throws off a lot of people as well is like when we talk about jobs and when we talk about the internet having a job, it's like people think it's like if I don't make the internet my job, if I don't make content my job, if I don't make this my job, I have to go for a shitty part-time job, which is not true.
Right. Right.
It's not, but it's
Yeah. Well, I think it
like
is for a
I
lot of them though, or at least that's their fear.
that's no,
My
that's what I'm saying. That's their fear. That's what
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah, absolutely. No, and I think that's why they live in the internet so much. It is that escapism.
Mhm.
They don't want to face, um, and I do think it's a subconscious thing because I mean I think the people who are the most obsessed with the internet, who are the most chronically online, are the people who have extremely low self esteem and don't think that they can succeed in anything out of it. And to be honest, that may be the case. You know, like you may need to,
Well, if you're too deep into it,
yeah,
yeah,
you may need to go work to
to
develop
realize,
the skills. I
yeah.
mean that's the thing, but that's what like when I'm talking about, you know, needing the internet versus not. I don't need the internet in the terms of I could stop all of this today. I could sell my setup. I could delete all my accounts and I could go do 10 to 15 careers. I have no issue. Like I could go live that life. I don't want to. I'm on the internet because I want to make content. I want to be a content creator. I want to be in this industry. Um, but I don't need it. I don't need, and that's the difference. That's the key difference. And when I realized that I kind of have that superpower over these people. I mean, dude, you could too. A lot of people that I like am working closely alongside with, I would have no concern. You know, like Sad. Sad is a great example. Sad could be the manager at any company in the world, and he would do great. Like he does not need esports. Esports needs him. The internet needs him more than he needs it. And like that's the position you want to be in this industry. Um, and that's why, you know, it made me realize why some streamers act the way they act. I mean, the Neons of the world, dude. Neon needs the internet because what's he gonna like? What other career could he possibly do being that much of a jackass and a moron? Nothing. And I think that's what it is. It's like they see those people and they think, oh, well, then I don't have to face the real world. I don't have to grow up. I don't have to get
It's
any
one of
skill
those
set.
it's one of, for someone like Neon, it's one of those all or nothing
Yeah,
moments.
absolutely. And I think that's where most of these people are looking up to that, and they don't want to have to settle for a 9 to 5, or they don't want to have to go get a normal job or any of
It's like
that stuff.
we're those people where it's like, I think our realization, us two specifically, it's like we want to make content a thing. That's gonna be the
Yeah.
number one goal, to
Yeah.
make a career out of content. That being said, it's not like we're the ones that are making this. We're not the type to make this all or nothing, where
Yeah.
it's like
Right.
we're not gonna throw everything away
Yeah.
just to make content work. It's like, yes, we want content to work and we will make sacrifices
And
for
this
that.
goes back
That being
to,
said,
yeah, it goes back to
go ahead.
what we've talked about so many times of what is our motivation for doing it? Like
Yeah.
for someone like Neon, the motivation is clout, fame, money, whatever, right? All selfish, like self-fulfilling type things. It's like this is the only for him, it's the only career where he can continue to be a terrible person and get rewarded for it. He does not want to
Mhm.
change in any way, shape, or form, and he views the
And
internet as the only way to
this
do that.
generation and what people are just makes it worse. For it makes it
Yeah,
better for him, worse for
absolutely.
future the longevity.
But then
And
you talk about why we do it, why we do content. I do content, I started content because I was a youth pastor and I saw that people like Neon were such a terrible influence. I wanted to try and be a good influence. You know, you talk about like I want to inspire, I want to educate, I want to do all this stuff. It's selfless. It's not just all about me. It's not about what can I get out of it. It's about what can I give to it. And I think when you have that attitude, when you put it that way, those are the people who don't need it, because that attitude can be taken anywhere. That attitude can be taken into any career, any whatever, and you'll be a successful person in life.
yeah,
The
I,
internet's one of the only places that you can be successful having that completely self-fulfilling.
I think I've gotten to somewhere where you got in with the whole youth pastor thing, where it's like we were talking about right before the stream, I said stream, before this recording,
Mm-hmm.
where you talk about your youth pastor experience and
Mm-hmm.
then your realization from that. Mine, I haven't hit this realization for my career yet, like when it comes to content and stuff.
Yeah.
But I've also realized that I enjoy teaching something that I once was,
Yeah.
caring about, and that's teaching
Yeah.
basketball. Like
Yeah.
outside of this whole content thing, I don't talk about it a lot. I don't talk about it on stream as much unless someone asks, and it's because it's not like it's one of those things where it's like, yes, it's part of my life, but it's like it's not what I want you guys to know me for type of thing.
Sure.
So it's like I outside, if you didn't know, I teach. I'm a sports instructor for the city that I live in, of course, and I teach people from the ages of like 4 to. It's technically 4, but I'm just gonna say 6 because that's the age I enjoy or like actually care to teach.
Mm-hmm.
Um, 6 to like 15 that I'm
Yeah.
teaching the fundamentals of basketball, what works, what doesn't,
Yeah.
what tips and like those types of things. Like I'm
Yeah.
putting them through drills, teaching them, and I enjoy it. Like I don't go to work and be like, "Fuck, I gotta go deal with another day at work." It's
Yeah.
yo, I get another day at teaching these guys who want to make their school team, rep team, house league team, whatever it is that they're joining, or just want to get better at the game in general because they want to make it further with this or make something out of it. I'm teaching
Yeah.
them for whatever reason that they want to do it and whatever their motivation to learn is,
Yeah.
and I'm teaching them those fundamentals. And it's kind of like it's the inspiration of what people like as being a coach in
Yeah.
like professional sports and stuff, or even professional esports. You want to teach people things that they didn't know. You want to teach people things to make them a better person, but also make you a better person. Whatever it is that your goal is,
Yeah.
I think my realization, like you were with the youth pastor thing, my realization now is that I enjoy teaching people things. Like,
Yeah.
of course, I can in gaming because I'm not the greatest at competitive gaming. I'm not the coach that I'm not gonna aim to be a competitive coach. That's not my goal, and
Yeah.
I don't think it will ever be. But that being said, I like this whole sports instruction thing. I don't
Yeah.
think I'll take it far when it comes to like, I don't think I'll take it into a crazy part of my life, but I definitely see it as like a hobby type of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't mind being the coach of like,
Yeah.
a nephew and niece's basketball
It is.
team or
Well,
like
no,
a
bro. It
recreational
is.
team type of thing.
It's a completely different type of rewarding to teach or to coach. Like,
Hmm.
and that it's hard. It's really hard to explain to somebody who, um, hasn't done it. But like, for example, with sports, like I played sports growing up, played a lot of them, and then coaching said sports was a completely unique and different experience. Like
Yeah.
you get the same maybe even more. You get the same satisfaction like when they win or whatever, but it's different. It doesn't feel the same as when you're the player. It's completely different. And like it's a bit of a bittersweet thing because sometimes you do miss the feeling of being a player, but it's I don't know. It's really magical. It really is. Like there's something that unlocks it. You're just like
Mhm.
you want the best for them. You want them to succeed. Like you want to pour into them. Like man, like and being
It's not. It's not one of those things where it's like. It's not one of those. It's not one of those achievements where it's like, oh, I led this team to
yeah
this
yeah
accomplishment. It's not one of those. It's
yeah
not like taking credit.
right.
It's one of those things where it's like, dude, it's hard to describe it. It's one of those things
That's
where
what
it's
I
like,
mean.
I don't know how to phrase it. It's one of those things where it's like, you won, you weren't the player, you
Yeah
helped your team, but it wasn't just like you made minimal help. Like
yeah
clearly there are people. There's also one of the things that's feel the greatest about it is that you're getting thanked.
yeah
Like
yeah
you're
absolutely.
regardless of if it's after a practice, after a game, after a
It
win, a loss, after whatever it is, you're
yeah
getting thanked by the
yeah
player, by their parents, by whoever it
yeah
is. You're getting thanked by somebody, and that's one of the best feelings in the world because you help somebody out, whether that's with
yeah
a physical or mental thing. You help somebody out in
yeah.
life, and that
No,
will
I mean,
always hit.
um, you know what's crazy is like that feeling, the same feeling of coaching, I've gotten in management positions in esports. Like, dude, when Cooper got second in his, I think first grands ever, like I was losing it. Like it was just a total feeling of pride washed over me. When Noxie got sixth in this grands, and actually, even the bigger thing, we won 4 out of 6 games on day 2 in grands. Prodigy did.
I saw that.
A Prodigy team won 4 out of the 6 games, which is insane. Um, and every single one of those wins, man, like, dude, it felt the same as being a coach to me. Like
Mhm.
to be a part of someone else's success is rewarding in a way that is completely different. It's not about you at all, but you get to share in it and have joy in it. It's a very unique experience. But it's selfless at the end of the day. It
Yep.
is in equipping somebody else to achieve their goals, um, which is it's just completely different. And we need more people with a selfless attitude. I think in the esports and the content space because it's so
Yep.
filled with um selfishness and backstabbing and all the stuff that comes with that.
Yep.
Like 2 a.m. Fuck 2 a.m. I have to say it at least once a podcast.
You're actually
2 a.m.
screaming, bro.
Subway. I mean, dude, a great example of probably the biggest degenerate I've ever seen. He did a stream where he went on for
Quote
hours
unquote
rambling,
exposed.
exposing a bunch of cheaters with really no real proof. And the list was
And
insane. I
then
mean, he
he literally said it in the stream. He's like, "Oh, these are all hunches.
hunches. Yeah.
Why? Why do you
I mean, bro,
why
I'm
do you
sorry.
want that attention?
He
Why
had
would you do
Pluralism on
that?"
that list, and I love Pluralism with all of my heart. There's no way that motherfucker is cheating. I've seen Pluralism play. He is not cheating. I can guarantee you. So, um,
He's a good. If you watch Plow back in the day, you can tell that he wasn't cheating. He just be like a cheap to the system. Like if you watch him back in the old days, where he's like, this guy would play 1v1s and he'd do his 1v1 record. It was the funniest shit. This guy would literally build to height and
yeah.
he wouldn't stop, and he would piss every opponent
Or
off
when
by
he's
that.
below, he just does the cone spamming and chopping or
Yeah,
plow
like
chop.
dude,
Yeah,
he does it like he plays by
yeah.
the system and it's
No,
technically
but
legal. It's just like unwritten rule type of thing, but still. It's technically
SPG
legal.
SPG had a fantastic tweet in response to that. He was like,
What, the subway or plow thing?
yeah, the subway. He was like, we wonder why Fortnite esports is not taken seriously. Like there's your answer. You know what I mean? Like he tweeted that right after the stream ended, and like I mean that is it's true.
I've
That's
never seen
completely
so many pros under one
Quanti.
irrelevant
Quanti's
person.
tweets were so funny. I
So
usually
hilarious.
hate
I
Quanti
opened
on
them
the
this morning.
timeline.
I was at the gym and I was seeing them and I was like dying, bro.
I hate Quanti's tweets 99% of the time, but it was that was how I knew something was terrible if I agreed with Quanti's takes. But like, dude, it was so fucking embarrassing. And to think that he's like so old, that Subway is like that old and he's begging for attention from 14, 15, 16-year-old Fortnite like kids and pros, dude. Like, oh my gosh, man, get a grip. I can't like. I wish that there was some kind of governing body for Fortnite esports that could shut down organizations and that 2 a.m. would get shut down. Like, I don't know how they haven't been shut down or canceled at this point. They are the perfect archetype. They are the perfect caricature for everything that is wrong with the Fortnite scene and the Fortnite competitive scene. And I wish it would all change. With that being said, I hope that things will begin to change leading into the next major. We're already prepping for Major 2 at Prodigy. I know that, other orgs are getting in there. I want the scene to change. I really do. I want to see growth. I want to see change. I want Fortnite esports to become the product that it could be, become the experience for viewers that it could be.
It's gonna be an interesting year for
It really
this
will
game.
be.
Because last year was one of those. I think Chapter 4 was one of those things like people again, hype at the beginning of chapters is always going to be a thing, like regardless. Like this season was like we saw it, like we saw it at the beginning of the chapter, especially the boost of Mongrel coming back was ginormous, and then dueling with Savage on top of that. Listen, next season if something big happens, I've seen some tweets at Metro, I've seen some tweets at other pros coming back. I'm not gonna. Chances of them coming back are slim. It's possible. We never thought we didn't think we'd see Mongo this season.
Right.
But that being said, I'm not gonna. Again, I'm one of those. Like we said, I think we said this before the podcast. We might have said it during. It's like hope for the best, expect the worst or whatever.
Yeah.
But we want to see it happen. It would be amazing to see happen. But with how Fortnite's gone the last year and a half, like 2 years, it's not going to be surprising if this beginning of season hype now goes to like a downhill trend all of a sudden. I'm not going to be surprised by it, but this beginning of season hype, I would never give it up. I would never give it up.
We'll see
regardless
how the new
if
season,
I play the game or not.
I think the new season will be a big indicator, right? Because the major won't be for a couple months into the season or whatever, but the new season is a couple weeks away.
The major, it's 44 days.
It's April,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's in April.
Yeah.
So I guess
which isn't bad. Which isn't horrible.
Yeah,
it's like
not terrible. But yeah, it's supposed to be Greek god, like Greek mythos themed, which I think could be cool. Could be a really cool concept if done well. I think there's supposed to be a rank skin coming out based on what rank you achieve, which starts at gold, which I find a little bit funny. But it is what it is. The Unreal one doesn't look crazy from what I saw. Like it doesn't. I don't know if it's worth grinding for. I mean, obviously bragging rights, and like it will get more people to grind ranked, I think, than what already existed. Like I'm considering calling someone to backpack me, carry me to Unreal on the first couple days of the season.
Only reason I'm not gonna complain is a start. At least it's not a
I agree.
spray.
I agree.
At least it's not a fucking spray.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. Well, even the rap, I actually liked the arena rap. Now, I don't think that's all the award should have been, but I don't hate it. No, it should have been a skin for a long time.
I think
they have the resources, they have all of that, like, and to incentivize playing ranked, like, I don't know. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of good steps, I think, towards building the esport to what it could be. Very slow burn, I think, in that. Like it won't be fully realized. But
when's the new season? March
8th. I think March 8th is.
So we have about a week and a half, if I'm not even like a week. Yeah, like a week. Like a week. We have 9,
which is
9
days before my 22nd birthday. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, you're old. Shit.
I know, dude. I know. I was touring around the streams of the people on Prodigy's roster today. I was checking in on all of our players who were live. And I went into Seek's chat, who got 15th in Grands, by the way. Love that kid.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, oh, you're Jatmon. Yeah. Like, because I'm pretty new to Prodigy. I've only been on like a month and some. And I haven't interacted with most of the pros. I've just been doing like content and like other management stuff. But I like said some shit. I was talking to him about something. And he's like, "Oh, you're an old fucker, aren't you?" Because he was trying to figure out who I was. And I was like, he was like, "Oh, are you the guy that does the watch parties?" I was like, "Yeah, that's me." He's like, "Oh, you're an old fucker." I was like, "Yeah, I turned 22 in like a week." And he's like, oh hell no, you're like ancient. I was like, okay, bro.
I I think I think our experimenting with this new podcast thing is gonna be great. I mean, who knows if it pans out or not? It's something we want to see how it works out. You
Yeah.
know, it's like what is it called, trial and error? Yeah, trial and error. Like
Yep.
you never know what's gonna happen. We're not gonna say that this is gonna stick around all the time. It's a cool concept that we want to see what goes on with it. And
I just want to get an episode out consistently. Like I just want to have
that
an
being
episode a week.
yeah,
Like
and that being said, I like this format. Even if it doesn't work out, I wouldn't hate continuing this because it's kind of
yeah,
like we don't have to rely on anybody, I guess. And
right.
we know both of our whatever
Yeah,
availability,
yeah,
whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
That being said, I feel like next week's episode is gonna cover a lot more of what the new season and those
yeah,
expectations for
for
that is
sure.
gonna be.
Yeah.
And the teasers, like we've seen a few now. Like we're not gonna cover. I don't think we're
Yeah,
gonna cover
a
them
lot of
this
this one was
episode.
reflecting on Grands, and I think just like getting a
Yeah.
bearing
That's what the hype.
for
Well, that's what the hype was the last few days, right?
yeah
And
what this
this whole thing with the
yeah
OCE thing and
yeah
this whole
and
2
just
a.m.
figuring
shit,
out I
whatever the
think
fuck.
what an episode like this would look like what a two man
Yeah,
where
I
it's not
think.
just
I mean, if we're making predictions for next week's episode, I mean, we've seen a few teasers so far. Fortnite X Avatar. I'm kind of very excited for that.
yeah.
I love Fortnite. I love Avatar. Sorry,
I
I
love
don't love Fortnite.
Avatar.
I love Avatar.
I don't like the live action Avatar. That's a whole rant
I did.
for
That's
a
that we
separate
don't
time, but
gotta. Nah.
I think with that, I think we're good for the
Yeah,
first.
there's a lot to be expecting for next week's episode with the new season,
Yes,
but for
sir.
now, I think this is a good note to end off on.
Yeah, if you watched all the way to the end and you enjoyed everything you heard, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell now for weekly episodes. You'll catch us every
Yes,
week.
sir.
Our lovely voices, our opinions, all of that, giving you the updates and the news on Fortnite, esports, Twitch, all that stuff. And it doesn't mean we're going to stop having guests. Like we will still make every effort to get all the good guests we can in the world. And trust me, those conversations are still being had. We're still trying to book everyone that we can.
Just don't expect it every week.
Follow us on Twitter for updates on that. Maybe we'll start letting you know if we have a guest for that upcoming week or not, so that you can tune in. And yeah, we'll catch you all in the next episode of Ghost Comms. Peace.
Later, everybody.